What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone, we got Wes from Pharmacose. Thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. You just released the music video for Checked Out off of your latest album, which is Prescription Fiction. But for people who are maybe like just discovering you now, is Checked Out almost kind of like a clear representation of what Pharmacose's entire sound is like, or is this in a way just like the tip of the iceberg for you guys?
I think we have a pretty, I guess I'd say, a variety of sounds. This is probably our most alternative sounding song. We kind of have, I think, diversity of sound is probably a good name for it. We come from different backgrounds. I actually come from a classical music background, and I'm kind of more the rock guy. And then our guitarist, he comes from more of a metal background, and our drummer is kind of more of a prog guy. And so, when you kind of mix all that together, you get a bunch of different sounds. This one kind of came out sounding more like an alternative song almost.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting. I'd imagine everybody in the band coming from like different backgrounds and stuff like that. That has to keep it interesting in writing new material. And you guys are on the more fairly experimental side, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'd say Lou and I Lou Rubino, he's our producer and our bassist also. He and I, have started out writing all the songs. And I brought a lot of the songs to him to actually first get done. But, as we kind of started adding people and adding stuff together, that's just kind of what came out. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that has to maybe get people from multiple audiences into you guys as well, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's the hope. You have some songs that sound kind of more punk. We have some songs that sound kind of more metal. Some sound a little bit more alternative. So, we hope that we can bring a lot of people in from a lot of different genres. That's kind of the hope. But then again, you don't hope that, you don't try to bring all these people in. That's not what you go into writing a song, thinking about. Mm-hmm. So, when we wrote the song and recorded it in one day, I mean, we were just kind of there in the moment doing it, and this is just kind of what came out. Mm-hmm. So, it kind of just, depends on what kind of mood you're in, too. Yeah. So,
is there ever a preconceived idea when it comes to songwriting, or is there just like a lot of improvising involved?
We do a lot of different things. Like I said, when we first started, it was just all me. I was bringing Lou stuff to the studio, and we were recording it. But this was one of the first songs that we actually wrote together, and I kind of just brought like a little lick. Like it ended up being the bass line, and then we just kind of added on one layer here, one layer there, and now I kind of do some stuff here at the house. I've got my own little studio, and so I might have like a little idea that's even kind of synthy. And, bring it to Lou, and then he'll add some bass stuff, and then, we'll just kind of go from there. So, mm-hmm. We just kind of mix it up, whatever feels good.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where maybe like a lyrical concept or maybe a subject matter can help determine the outcome of the music, or are lyrics and stories always like the last thing to come into play?
Well, I think kind of where we were at for this, or where I was at, I write the lyrics, or I have written all the lyrics. I'm, totally open to, other guys helping out, and they have, but I think I've kind of stuck to the whole mental health side of things, just because that was what I was going through at the time. And it's kind of funny because sometimes the lyrical content will just come right to you. It'll just come right out. Sometimes you got to kind of force it. So again, it just all kind of depends on where your head's at. No pun intended.
Is forcing stuff though ever like some people say you force something, it never works, but has that ever worked in your favor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I find that inspiration is really you get it sometimes, but it can kind of be it kind of comes and goes, right? But if you just kind of sit down and say, whatever comes out, I'm going to sit down for a half hour and try to write something. And, it never comes out perfectly. The first time you write it too, I feel like I got to go back and revise stuff and do rewrites and edit stuff and make it sound better. So I think there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's just not all, it just kind of comes to me. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Because it seems you mentioned like inspiration sometimes comes out of nowhere, but do you find it easier? You mentioned you have like your own home studio in a way, so like, is there ever a time where maybe being in your own place in your own like in isolation almost that almost helps make ideas flow, or do you prefer to be in the company of your band members in order to write stuff?
It just kind of depends. So for the most part, I think I like being alone, and it's kind of funny. Like you'll see some like for the clearing, for instance. I talk about like shoot the demons till they're dead. I was actually watching Supernatural. kind of a so it's just kind of funny. Like when I'm by myself and the things I'm doing, things I'm thinking about, even the things I'm watching can kind of influence me. And with this song Checked Out, it was kind of funny just kind of coming to that, what you were saying about, inspiration versus just kind of working at it. That was kind of both, because I feel like I knew what I wanted to write about, and while Lou was kind of working on the bridge of this song, I was writing the lyrics. And, we were kind of taking a break and just talking, and I'd kind of been feeling a little, this was after I'd had a manic episode, and I was kind of getting back to normal and trying to kind of get my meds right. But I was just kind of feeling, kind of blah. And he's like, yeah, you kind of seem like you're feeling checked out. And, as soon as he said checked out, it was like the floodgates opened, and I was just able to finish the song. And so the interaction is cool too.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it awesome when like the greatest things happen by accident?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you actually have a background in classical music or just into classic rock?
Classical music.
Okay, so like theory and all that stuff as well?
Yeah. I kind of let it slip a little bit, but because I've got a full-time job and just kind of so I'm a violinist, and so I kind of let that slip some. But I've always played guitar, and but I definitely am versed in theory and all that, and so we try to. We try to be as musically sound as we can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd imagine, does having a background in music theory at all help, or being that you are in like a rock and metal band, you kind of have to like throw that out the window a little bit?
Oh no, it definitely helps. It absolutely helps, and it helps because with changing keys, music theory is like a language. If we want to talk about if we're jamming or something, or we're talking about where to go in a song, it really helps out to know everybody have on the same page. Where let's say we're in B minor, and we know that F sharp and D, and we know the chords that go along with the key, so we know what sounds good coming up next. We know where we can take this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because I interviewed Tardia, or Tarja, as everybody pronounces her name, and who's classically trained as a vocalist, and she said that sometimes, while it's great to know, sometimes it could also be too dictating in a way. Do you ever feel that sometimes as well?
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes you just sit down and start playing something, and you go, "Wow, this is cool," and then only later when you kind of go back to it, when you're deconstructing why it sounds good, then you realize, oh, it's in this key, or it's in something major, something minor. So it doesn't always have to be strictly by the theory. I mean, sometimes, I'm sure that probably the greatest rock songs ever written were just hey, this sounds pretty cool, guys, let's go with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't sit there and go, okay, well, why don't we go to the relative minor of this for the bridge. I doubt that happened. So
yeah, it's good to know how to converse with other musicians about music. Like it is a language, like you said. So when you have four guys who are fluent in that language, you know how to deviate from the rules and also use it to your advantage at the same time.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned mental health does play a very important role in your music, which I think is phenomenal. Thank you for addressing such an important subject matter in your music. But can your music also still be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe inform the listener on a certain issue?
Well, I'm not trying to I guess, saying to inform people, that could be where I'm going, but really what I'm trying to do is just put a sense of put down on paper kind of what my feelings were, what I went through, mm-hmm. and to just hopefully people can identify with that, And it may not be that they, latch on to the whole picture, but they can latch on to a feeling here or there. And maybe they can, the interpretation is really what emotions they feel because of it,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, it is open to interpretation.
Yeah, and I'd imagine, because, there's a very famous saying, when you put out a song, it immediately becomes theirs. So you
Sure.
kind of have to, expect that people are going to see something different in your art than what you were seeing in it.
Yeah, and there could be some Freudian stuff in there too, not from a sexual standpoint, but, things that I was thinking of unconsciously. You know what I mean? So there could be things in there that I don't know that are there that other people can say, hey, maybe this is what he was trying to get at too, and he just didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, I was reading the biography that was sent to me when conducting with this interview, and you mentioned you weren't feeling great, and you weren't feeling you weren't feeling very good either, but you weren't feeling bad. You were just kind of in the middle in a way. But we kind of just talked about it in a way, but do you think if maybe people were to get to know you and then listen to the entire Prescription Fiction album, would they kind of maybe in a way know what you were feeling when you wrote that song?
Yeah, I think so. I think the way I kind of I tried to describe how I was feeling in that song, And I think with the atmosphere that the song creates, it's not really a real headbanging song. It's kind of a more relaxed song, and I think the whole thing kind of fits together to create an atmosphere. And when you have an atmosphere around you, when the setting is correct, it can kind of put you in a mood. And I think that's where I was kind of going. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So you try to capture a moment with each song, right?
I think so. Like for The Clearing, I kind of feel like the verse, I'm kind of almost in a manic phase, in a manic episode. And then during I'm kind of in the moment, but the chorus, I'm kind of looking at it from the outside, looking at myself, and maybe that could be from months on down the line is really what it came from, just kind of trying to talk to that person who was at the time was kind of going nuts. So
well, do you find that the longer you work on a song, the harder it is to kind of maintain that moment? Because sometimes you're working on a song for hours, days, weeks. I mean, I can only imagine how hard it was for Tool to capture a moment on their latest album. So do you find that the longer you work on something, the harder it is to maintain that?
Well, it's kind of funny you mention that, because I think I mean, there's songs that I have recorded parts of, and I just can't get done. And I think the ones that you hear are the ones that we've said, hey, we can wrap this up and put a nice bow on it. And so I think the longer you work on something, it can become more difficult. But that might the struggle sometimes is what makes a song great. So maybe we'll finally be able to get some of those long, maybe even more progressive songs done.
Mm-hmm.
At some point.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe even when a moment's lost, the struggle of making it captures a new moment in itself, right?
That's well said. It's very well said.
Yeah, and I mean, when you try to capture, especially if you're writing about a specific thing that happened, it's not going to feel when you go into the studio a day or two later, and it's just impossible to feel the same way, right? You can't relive something.
No, you can't. I mean, you can kind of put yourself back, and if the words are descriptive enough, you can kind of put yourself there. But a lot of times when the stuff I was writing, it was months later, and it was kind of how I felt now about looking back, and looking back with almost and it's kind of hard to feel like what you were then when you're on medication and you're feeling better and you've been through therapy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, to really try to capture any, kind of feeling is difficult. Definitely. So I don't know if that makes much sense, but
it made a lot of sense. And you ready for the most difficult question in the entire interview? I stumble everybody with it. I'm on a roll with it. I love it. How do you know when a song is done?
Some people might say a song is never done.
Yeah, and please don't, because that's such a that's like the easy way out.
Right, I know. I feel like the song is done when we can look at each other and go, okay. I think Lou probably, him being the producer, he has the most say over when a song is done. But I think that when everybody has their parts recorded and everybody's happy, I think that's when the song is done.
Yeah. And you probably think at some point it is done, and then you bring it to the producer, and then they throw in a whole new idea, and then it just opens up 10 more doors for that one song, right?
Sure, and that's happened. I think that happened with the first song off the record we got coming out, called Alternate Reality. It started out, I probably wrote it 6 or 7 years ago, and it came out, when I brought it to him, it was one song, and then when we were done, it was like it was a completely different song, even though the lyrics were pretty much the same. So.
Yeah, and kind of like leading into that, we talked about this before too, on how like a concept could determine the music, but do you need the music to come up with the exact lyrics too?
I think these days I like to have the music done first, but that's not always been the case. I have started, in the past I've just would just write, and I would come back days later and I would look at some of it and I say, okay, I can make a song out of this, and then kind of take that concept or even take some of the lines from that and then just put it into, a lyrical form.
Mm-hmm. And nothing could be more heartbreaking too, right, than having like the best lyrics ever and seeing how they go one syllable over the arrangement or something like that.
Yeah. Or just, or you find you're repeating the same word too many times, or, it's just, I tell you, one of the, I'm sure many people do this, but I'm sure I'm not the only writer that does this, but I actually use, to help me out from time to time, I think it's called Rhyme Zone on the internet, because sometimes I just cannot find a word that rhymes. But it's no different than using a thesaurus, though. And I use I know. But I use dictionaries, I use thesauruses, and so.
I mean, unless I'm dropping bars in a rap battle, I don't know if I could ever resort to that. But hey, you might have some more ideas coming from that. And finally, the last question I want to ask you is: all you guys are from Jacksonville, Florida?
Yeah, we're in the kind of the Jacksonville, St. Augustine area. St. Augustine's about 40 minutes away from here, so we all kind of live in this area.
Yeah. So is there a current active rock scene? Because Florida, just to give a rundown, Florida, and I'm not going to talk specifically every city or whatever, but it's the death metal capital of the world. Then you have bands like Trivium and Under Oath and Camelot coming out of there. Tom Petty is from Florida. Is there a current music scene? Sorry?
He's from Gainesville, yeah.
Yep. So is there a current metal or rock scene that you guys associate yourself with down in Florida, or do you prefer to at this point to get outside your state lines a little bit more to get the name out there?
Well, right, there is a metal scene here, and it's kind of been a little bit challenging to kind of break into it. But I think we have, and the virus has kind of put a damper on that, unfortunately, because we had to, postpone some gigs. But I think, the bands that we were going to play with probably are a little bit more metal, but, I don't really foresee that being a problem. I think, as long as we're up there and we're showing our brand of rock, then, I think people will like it. And I think that it just, a little variety never hurts.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, I think you guys are, in a way, with a band of your style, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because you're going to be share to the death metal crowd, but I think to some more pop fans, you guys are Burzum. So
I know. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So before we go, I would like to thank you so much for your time today. I hope you and your bandmates and everybody is safe down there.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Pharmacose? You said you have some new music in the works. Can we be expecting that soon?
Yeah, so we got the this first part of this record, Prescription Fiction Part 1, coming out May 1st, but a lot of the songs are already released on as singles on Spotify. And then we've got Part 2 coming at some point later in the year. We haven't decided when, but it's coming. And we've got the video for The Clearing coming out. We haven't solidified it. The whole virus thing is throwing everybody off, but it should be out in the next couple weeks. So
awesome. And as soon as all this is over, I'm sure we'll see you on the road, right?
I'm hoping so. We're trying to do what we can. So things have kind of been screwed with.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna do the best we can to get up and going.
Yeah,
So,
we're all in this together.
absolutely.
Yeah. But Wes, thanks again so much for your call today. Everybody, Wes of Pharmacose. New stuff coming very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.